Hello everyone and welcome back to Explain Sikit Kini. I'm Azreen from Malaysia Kini and today we're bringing you a special regional edition. So when we think about misinformation, we often think about fake news or viral social media posts. But across Southeast Asia, journalists are finding that the challenge is far more complex. From coordinated influence campaigns and foreign narratives to AI generated content and increasingly sophisticated online networks. So today we're joined by journalists from Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines to talk about their recent investigations, what were the findings, and what all of us should be paying attention to as the region's information landscape continues to evolve. So joining me today are Danny Chu from Reforma Media, who examine how Malaysian media reports on the South China Sea and Malaysia's broader information environment.
Thank you, Azreen, and thank you for the opportunities. And I think this is very grateful and very honorable to sharing this kind of thing.
John Hurt from PressOne.PH in the Philippines, who investigated the wave of half truths and misleading narratives surrounding US aid.
Hi, Azreen. Hello,
How's
everyone.
things in Philippines?
Oh, it's fine. It's starting to rain here, but still a bit hot, just like everybody else in Southeast Asia.
And last but not least, Rina Nurjanah, news editor at Tirto.id in Indonesia, who investigated how government websites were compromised and used to promote illegal online gambling.
Hello everyone. Thank you Azreen for inviting me here.
Hello everyone and thank you all for joining me and welcome to Explain Sikit. So I'm going to start with Danny. Danny, your team analyzed hundreds of news articles covering the South China Sea issue and found that Malaysian media is perhaps less pro-China than many people assume and more accurately described as pro-Malaysia. But what actually surprised you the most during that investigation?
Okay, thank you, Azreen, for the opportunity to sharing my research throughout these 2 years. And we have been working out because we have been working out with South China Sea and also the nine dash line map assertions throughout these days. So yeah, back to the topic. I think because one of the one of the research about South China Sea, because we are using the data scraping as our methodology method. So we actually chose two Chinese media, two Malay media, and also two English media as our samples, and we actually data scraped around 800 articles and doing this data analysis. So yeah, our our brief conclusion is that this kind of media is sort of more pro Malaysia than pro China. But what actually surprised me is that after our interviewee experts, um, they actually have some methodological feedback to our research. Is that when we want to do a like semantic research, for example, like pro China or pro Malaysia, data scraping is not enough yet, because data scraping is just based on maybe the headline. We analyzing the term and the verb, but what really influencing the Malaysian media landscape is not just based on the wording or the headline. So for example, the what we call the FIMI, the foreign information manipulation and interference, is mostly by the diplomats, by the embassy, and by the other like coordinated inauthentic behavior account, like that. So after that, we think that one of the most important part from the traditional media that uh shaping this kind of FIMI, also including embassy and also including the commentary section, but not just the ordinary headline, like that. Yeah. So, and other than that, I think our sample is still not enough. Other or despite we already like data scrapped for 800 from these six media, but because Malaysia, we have a very huge linguistic grievances and also the gap between Chinese, Malay, English, and also the Tamil community. So when we want to trace for a FIMI behavior, I think just 800 articles is very, very less than we think. So probably what I can suggest or recommend for those who want to research on this topic in the future, data scraping is definitely one of the most advanced methods that we can have a conclusion. But other than that, we need more qualitative methods to trace whether it has been interference by the other foreign information or not.
That's really interesting because it also shows that studying information manipulation isn't just about counting headlines or identifying biased language. It's also understanding who shapes the wider information ecosystem. So, but while Danny look at mainstream media, another investigation also focus on how global narratives travel across borders. So I'm going to move on to her. Hurt, your reporting trace how global narratives do not simply cross borders, they are also adapted and localized. What did your investigation reveal about that process?
I think there is not a lot here that I think I found surprising, but for many of our readers, I think maybe one that the first thing that stand out to me is that one of the key actors that were involved in this villainization is actually Elon Musk. They get their how should I say it? They try to lean on the Musk's popularity as if he is the one that is credible to speak on this kind of things or about foreign funding, something like that. And another is that although I would say one of the key findings is not really hasn't reached the Philippines yet, but a lot of the elements that we've observed here is actually also being used by other campaigns here in the Philippines, like using influencers and also like mobilizing inauthentic networks, something like that, and also like micro targeting, you know, targeting individuals or even um, there is also the element of like trying to appeal to the emotions of the people, to really get them started up with these issues.
Right.
And also, if I might add, is the again I've said before that it's not really uh, yet being. I mean, the narrative about the USA is not really huge here in the Philippines, but one of the elements that I've seen that these actors are really using, especially when it comes to the USA, is how they localize the stories. We know that the USAID issue is very US centric, Western centric, right? Um, People who really have something, I mean, when it comes to this propaganda, no, it's really easy to sell for these people and use like localized versions of these to really sell the idea that the USAID is doing something on their society, like they are being infiltrated by the CIA, something like that. No? And I think it's really one of the key thing here because um, you see, these kind of issues can be really easily be used against the local journalists in the countries that were where these narratives were spreading or where these narratives are being targeted to rather.
All right. Thank you, Hurt. Indonesia faced a very different challenge altogether. So I'm gonna move on to Rina. Rina, your investigation exposed how illegal gambling syndicates hijack government websites to promote online gambling. Can you tell us what your team uncovered and what surprised you the most during the investigation?
Um, I think the most shocking aspect is the terrifying scale of the operation and how calculated it is. It isn't just a few isolated case, it's a systemic epidemic. Data from the National Cyber and Crypto Agency in Indonesia reveals that throughout 2024, approximately 3,900 government website addresses spread across around 600 state institutions were infiltrated by online gambling content. And it hasn't stopped at that. On January 2025, hundreds of additional hijacked URL were still being detected. The most surprising finding is how syndicate weaponizing black hat SEO and SEO spam. They target government domain like .go.id for Indonesian government sites or .gov because search engine like Google naturally grant them immense domain authority due to their institutional legitimacy. Instead of altering the homepage completely, the attackers use web defacement to inject hidden URL, concealed directories, or silent redirect. Uh, when a citizen search for public service, Google algorithms rank these trusted government pages at the very top. But when click the URL reroute the user to a gambling site. Essentially, this global syndicate like riding the state reputation to hijack organic search traffic for free, completely bypassing the massive cost of building new domains that will instantly get blacklisted. So that's what I found in the topic.
All right, thank you, Rina. So I'm going to move on to Danny. Danny, when people hear misinformation, they usually imagine fake news on Facebook or Instagram. But based on your reporting, where do you see information manipulation actually taking place in Malaysia today?
Yeah, I think this is a very good question. Is that mainstream media basically acts as more like as a baseline amplifier, but I think most of the most aggressive and dangerous forms of this kind of FIMI and also DMI, domestic information manipulation, is also have entirely migrated into ecosystem of open like algorithm social platform. Yeah, and also another part is the closed and encrypted messaging apps, for example like WhatsApp, for example like WeChat and Telegram, this kind of social media and also messaging apps lah. So what I found is that besides the traditional media and also the social media, for example like the news platform and the pages, like Facebook pages is also Facebook groups is also a very important platform. And also what we always like not paying attention to the apps called Red Note. Yeah, in Mandarin we call it the 小红书. Yeah, so basically these apps is filled with almost 95% of the Chinese content, and it is highly integrated and integrated with overseas Chinese, including Malaysian diaspora community and also the Singapore Chinese community. So in Malaysia Chinese community, I think we are already highly dependent on the Chinese this kind of information. So according to my experience, because I always like meeting my students and also the younger generations of the Chinese community, they always say it's like, okay, when I want to search something, instead of using Google or other searching engine, they started to use this kind of like Red Note apps to searching something. So this is part of them. So social media, including TikTok, Douyin, TikTok is and Douyin is the same company, but Douyin is more like producing Mandarin and Chinese content, but the TikTok is more on English or other languages content. So in Malaysian Chinese community, they are more tend to use Douyin as the main reels social media. Yeah. And also another factor is that also the soft power influence. What for example, like the entertainment industry, including the music, including the movies, and also including the education industry. So this kind of interference and also the influences, they will shape the perspective for the Malaysian towards China, mostly on social media, because on social media we have a lot of posts that is related to like entertainment industry, that the China, maybe economic power is getting stronger than before, and also the soft power, they might have more cultural influences. So this is what I found in social media. And for example, like sorry, I stuck. Okay. For example, like the traditional newsroom, right? So they are just the baseline, but I think the amplifier is basically on this kind of several social media. They amplify the whole for the community.
Danny mentioned that today's information environment extends far beyond traditional media. So I'm going to ask Rina. So beyond the gambling ads themselves, what do you think these investigation tell us about Indonesia or even Southeast Asia's broader digital ecosystem? Uh, are there bigger cybersecurity or governance issues that this case exposes?
Yeah, absolutely. Discuss expose a massive gap between administrative compliance and actual robust cyber defense. For context, in 2024 alone, cyber monitoring system in Indonesia detected over 800,000 traffic anomalies, signaling suspicious activities against government digital infrastructure. The autonomy of these attacks relies heavily on automatic reconnaissance. Syndicates deploy automated bots and web crawlers to scan thousands or of sites simultaneously, hunting for technical vulnerabilities like SQL injection, uh, cross-site scripting, and flow-fly upload mechanism. These vulnerabilities persist because of outdated software, a lack of regular security audit, and neglected inactive websites that become easy targets for them. Furthermore, there is a systemic issue with dangling DNS and poor vendor management. When an agency launches a short-term public campaign using a third-party vendor and forget to delete DNS record after the contract ends, hacker execute a web subdomain takeover. Because many government mobile apps are just wrappers that mirror web content, compromising the website automatically compromise the application on citizen smartphone. It showed that our public digital assets are being treated just as a static notice board rather than critical national security infrastructure. Hmm.
Right. So, Hurt, the Philippines has long been considered one of the world's case studies for online influence operations. So, based on your reporting, where do you think information manipulation is evolving most rapidly today?
So I think the current trend when it comes to FIMI here in the Philippines hasn't changed a lot when it comes to the foreign issues, I think, because we're still really concerned with China meddling with our affairs with the West Philippine Sea, as we call it, or the South China Sea, for our international viewers. Um, yeah, it hasn't really changed, but on the local level, especially in the domestic ones, the information manipulation and interference has really being I think it's improving in a very fast rate because of AI, especially. It is also has been challenging for us since again as researchers, who are researching on these things, you are looking at multiple angles at once because how fast the peace campaigns evolve with new technology, again, especially with AI. And I think foreign actors are also being into it, looking on the potential of using AI to really speed things up when it comes their to the propagation of foreign propaganda they are trying to or the ideas they are trying to sell.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we will explore what all of this means for the future. Are these campaigns becoming more sophisticated? How is AI changing the landscape? And what should journalists and the public be paying attention to next? We'll be right back. Welcome back to Explain Sikit Kini. We've explored how information manipulation is changing across the region, and now let's look at what's coming next and what it means for journalists and audiences alike. So, Danny, based on your research, have you noticed recurring narratives associated with China or the CCP that continue to appear in Malaysia?
Yes, there is a very highly consistent and I think sophisticated set of narrative blueprints. They vary like very sharply across the linguistic lines between like Chinese and English that will create a very distinct what I call like parallel universe. Okay, within the Malaysian public. So we basically we see like several main recurring patterns. Like just now, what you said is like economic and cultural alignment. So, basically, for the Chinese community and also the Chinese media, I think this theme is frequently a downplays immediate uh like for example like the regional security updates against the grand narratives of trade partnership between Malaysia and China, and also the economic prosperity, that how do we making win-win situation, and also the cultural ties between the China and the Malaysian, especially Chinese community. So it will oftenly like subtly highlights a peaceful rice framing between CCP and Malaysia, and they will like amplifying and uh con making the contrast of how China treating Malaysia versus how USA treating Malaysia. So this bring to like the US and China new Cold War. It is more on the geopolitical lens that it is more predominant in English media, I think. That is more driven like heavily by an uncritical reliance on more Western wire services, and also these reports are most like it's exclusively framing the regional developments around the international law and also the great power competition. Like they will like just now what I mentioned, they will like amplifying like, oh, China is the real partner that will treat Malaysia and other ASEAN partner more fairly, more better, and which can like inadvertently like pushing the local audience to view the issue as a foreign superpower struggle. Okay, rather than just a core domestic interest between China or US. And also the third one is that under this era, weaponization of anti-Western and also the anti-USA sentiment. So basically, like the external actors, okay, already increasing their right, assisting like domestic dissatisfaction with with the Western foreign policy regarding the international affairs, including the Palestine and Israel war, and also the Iran war. So by embedding this kind of pro sovereignty and also the anti imperialist rhetoric into a very local online spaces, they successfully co-opt this kind of domestic audiences into aligning authoritarian narratives out of the shared anti Western sentiment. So this is what I found. Basically, what CCP want to align with Malaysia and other ASEAN country rather than we are more friendly with USA. I think they have a competition between this line.
Right. So Danny's research highlights how geopolitical narratives are often adapted for local audiences. But information manipulation doesn't only involve narratives; it can also involve cross-border cyber activity. So I would like to ask Rina. Rina, many digital threats today do not stop at national borders. So, based on your investigation, are you seeing more cross border information manipulation or influence operation operating across Southeast Asia?
That is undeniably a transnational hybrid criminal operation, I think. The Indonesia National Police Cybercrime Directorate has classified this evolution as a crime as a service. What we are seeing is a highly organized international division of labor. Local hackers and SEO specialists act merely as a technical executor on the ground, while the infrastructure, mirroring system, and financial backing come from syndicate based in regional gambling hub, maybe like Myanmar or Cambodia. Uh, so to break the financial trail, the syndicate wrote a fund to domestic tech specialists using layer payment system, including cryptocurrency. Although the government has shut down over 2 million gambling website and blocked thousands of affiliated digital wallets, the transnational nature of this network utilizing global cloud infrastructure outside national jurisdiction that makes enforcement incredibly complex. And yeah, academic research even indicates that these hundreds of device pages across various countries are interconnected, funneling traffic into a massive globally synchronized promotional network. It operates exactly like a FIMI campaign, utilizing automation and mass exploitation to manipulate what information reaches the public. Hmm.
Interesting. Thank you, Rina. So I would like to ask this next question to her. Um, your reporting also showed how global narratives are localized for domestic audiences. So how does that localization happen in Philippines, and why is it so effective?
When it comes to the information environment here in the Philippines, I would say it's also um, the information space here in the Philippines is very, very political. Since um, I think the Philippines, because there is something with us Filipinos that find social media or even everything that when it comes to the digital information, like something like that, that think we really lean onto the idea that the this digital information space is our new third space. Like this is where we talk about other ideas, and along the way, it really uh, it really taps into the politics of everything that is happening here in the Philippines. We discuss again. We are in the middle of a very controversial political issues. Again, we have the impeachment of our vice president, the case against her currently ongoing, and then we also have this huge flood control billion peso flood control scandal and subsequent investigations, and there's a lot of politicians that been tagged in the investigation. And also really Philippines is really I mean, for the longest years we are really mired with a lot of corruption issues. So I think here in the Philippines, being we are always on our phones scrolling social media, So we talk about a lot of things in the digital information space, and also it exposes us to unique. I think it exposes us Filipinos into unique risks when it comes to us being in the social media or the digital information space a lot. So there is again propaganda can easily be propagated with this technology, and it doesn't help that we have AI right now that really speed things up a lot by 100 times, I would say.
All right, before we wrap up, I would like to ask each of you to look ahead. Technology is evolving rapidly. AI, coordinated online networks, cyber threats, and geopolitical competition are all reshaping Southeast Asia's information environment. So, what should journalists be paying the closest attention to over the next few years? Let's go one by one. Maybe we can start with Danny.
Okay, I think this kind of FIMI is already becoming very vastly more sophisticated because it has moved away from like the before, like the clumsy or outright fabrications. So as one of just I said, it is not just only the the hard power like economic grievances or the diplomacy, but also the soft power, including entertainment industries and also like having a lot of media workshops trying to influencing our media practitioners here, and also a lot of visitation to China for joining their national parade, and also the linguistic um, grievances. And also what I found is like the China and especially the CCP, they are very aware of Malaysian political landscape, including like the 3R and including our Chinese community, what we actually care and what our political stance is, including international political stance, that whether we support China, we support Taiwan or China or Hong Kong sovereignty or not, and also how do we support for either Anwar Ibrahim or our attitude toward past, including like that. So actually, I think we are entering an era where this kind of politics and also commercialized through operations are very heavily industrialized through this kind of FIMI industry. And also we also found that many automated like local AI agents and also the deepfakes to generate hyper targeting attack content at a scale. So a lot of AI generated content that is making Chinese community in especially in Malaysia as a target audience to amplifying their sense of belonging back to the CCP. Yeah, back to the CCP, that only CCP maybe can taking care of the overseas Chinese diaspora community and that. So I think what we must pay attention to is like our media practitioners. I think we need to break our dependency on the foreign wires and press releases always, because as well I know, our media practitioners are very lack of the training of like international relations and also international diplomacy, this kind of knowledge. So we are highly dependent on the wires, foreign wires, and also the press release, right? So I think we must stop practicing a very passive and this kind of reactive stenography, and also shift toward the behavioral tracking. And we need to train more this kind of professions. So newsroom, I think, must actively look at who is amplifying a narrative and how it is being distributed across the algorithms in social media and other media, rather than just fact checking and a very surface level text. I know this is difficult, but I think we need to take step by step towards this mission. And another one is, I think the public needs to be very like highly vigilant about the psychological triggers behind the news feeds. Yeah, so if a I think if a piece of the news, right, or forwarded videos in WhatsApp group or Telegram, like forwarded many times, especially in private chat groups, actually they are designed to make you feel immediate anger, fear, or proactive urge over the identity. Okay, because Malaysia basically is still a identity politics society, so they will make you feel like um you and they and you and me is like everyone is separating and isolated from each other. So you're likely in this situation will being targeted by a coordinated campaign very easily. So I think accessibility shouldn't compromise critical tracking, and we must all questioning the hidden source behind our daily digital information consumption lah, based on every day.
Rina, let me bring you in here. So, has AI already changed the way information manipulation operates in Indonesia? Are you seeing cases where generative AI is making investigations more challenging?
Yeah, generative AI and automated script have completely changed the velocity of the threats. Syndicates can, now they now can generate thousands of variation of clock landing page and multilingual keyword injection in a fraction of a second. They also utilize advanced IMP clock, accelerated mobile page clock, that showing one safe version of a page to search engine, while redirecting actual human users to the illegal gambling site. This makes manual detection and digital forensic incredibly difficult. But the most insidious motivation behind targeting government domain is whitelist evasion, because most institutional firewalls and automatic content filters automatically trust or whitelist official.go.id or .gov domains. By investing their illegal operation inside a distrusted state network, cybercriminal ensure their traffic bypass automatic security blocks. The implication go for beyond gambling ads, I think, or digital vandalism. If a government website can be easily breached to host a slot advertisement, the same vulnerability can be exploited to distribute devastating malware, orchestrated mass data theft, or redirect citizen to phishing site. It damages public trust to digital government, because I think government site must be treated as a strategical national asset. We need a complete paradigm shift, like continuous automated monitoring, strict secure software development life cycles, and mandatory rigorous cyber audit. Otherwise, public infrastructure will remain like a free billboard for global cyber crime. That's why we need a paradigm shift on this state digital governance.
All right, and finally, Hurt, you've spoken about AI several times throughout this conversation. What concerns you most about where all of this is heading, and what should journalists across Southeast Asia be preparing for?
First, like a lot of us here, journalists in the Philippines are concerned, is I really think that us journalists should look into the again should look with very very with a lot of concern when it comes to AI technologies. Again, this is we are in a very unprecedented times when it comes to how information is really being manipulated, because in a lot of the experts that I talk to, they say that AI has they really explicitly said this, but I think the consensus is AI has the capacity to create alternate realities. Because again, you have AI, which is very very good at uh, I mean at building, or sorry, I think sorry, let me replace that. You have AI that is I think that is very good at generating a lot of online content we consume right now. And then you have the social media, the digital media space in general, that is being a library of massive, massive contents. No, so it's just information overload, right? So yeah, I think as journalists, we should really look into AI with a deep concern on how it drives not just the industry but also how it drives the truth that we try to defend. And also, again, I think it's also the same for us. Na the Southeast Asia is has a lot of catch up to do when it comes to our democracies. So yeah, we really still have to look into it and how these technologies could intertwine with each other, the dynamics that are currently being built around it. And then I think it is time for us journalists to really reach out to people, to really like tell people what is the truth and what is not. Again, it is really hard to sell the truth right now because again, these technologies are really clever. That's I would say.
All right, that's the end of the show. Thank you, Danny, Rina, and Hurt, for joining us and for sharing your insights.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Azreen. Thank you so much from the Philippines with love. Thank you, everyone.
That's all for me, and thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me here, Azrin.
While the investigation focus on different issues, they all highlight the same reality. Information manipulation is becoming more sophisticated, more localized, and increasingly difficult to detect. So, for journalists, the challenge today goes beyond fact checking. It's about understanding the networks, narratives, and technologies that are shaping the information we see every day. So, we hope that this conversation inspires more cross border newsroom collaboration and investigative reporting across Southeast Asia. So, I'm Azreen from Malaysia. Thank you for listening, and we will see you in the next episode of Explain Sikit.